Sorry about that, guys. Um, so my new job that I have, I had to download a lot of apps for this job, and it has really like used up a lot of my storage on my phone. So I keep having to like delete stuff or whatever and get rid of stuff to create more storage, and that's why my videos keep like popping off on me. In any case, what I was actually talking about was, imagine being able to take the skills that I was describing, that discernment, that decision making ability, having parents that taught you how to do that at a young age, okay? And you started practicing doing that before you even left the house and before you even got into adulthood, okay, right? So each time you do that, each time you go through the process of using discernment, of thinking about your steps, right? And or thinking about the decision you have to make, and weighing the pros and the cons, and walking it out either this way or that way, right? And then you do it, and then maybe a good outcome happens or whatever. And what happens? You are celebrated. If your parents celebrate you and they applaud you, or they're like, good job, or you feel an inner strength about yourself, knowing that you made the right decision, right? Or a good decision, right? Like, imagine doing that and building your muscles and building confidence, right? Some of us had parents like that. And that gave us a bit of an edge when it comes to certain things. You can have the best parents, right? And you can have every advantage in the world and still have something happen. Why? Because the Bible says that unforeseen circumstances befall us all, right? Which means anything can happen. You step outside your car or get in an accident or anything, we just know that these things happen, right? Or next thing you know, you are somehow dealt a raw deal, right? But or sometimes you're a target, sometimes you're a special target from the devil or something like that, right? Or different things, right? But the point is that some of us were given that growing up as children, right? Growing up, that we had parents that built us up, that gave us certain confidences and things and showed us how to do things, and we had practice, right? And so in life, as different decisions had to be made, and sometimes I've had people say to me, like, you seem so confident, or you have so much self-confidence to do this or that, and I do things a lot of times, I don't like to stay in comfort zones. I won't stay in a comfort zone. But it's because I have learned and I have seen what happens when I stay in comfort zones. There's no growth. There's no growth. And I don't like that. And I've always been the type of person that's about growth and change and movement for the better in different things, right? And so a mix between being raised the way that I was and having that advantage, even though I had several circumstances in my life that were to a disadvantage, but I had the support that I needed so that I didn't grow up looking at the glass as being half empty. And I also didn't grow up feeling like I was at a disadvantage, and that no matter what decision I make, it's going to be bad, or la 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 la. I didn't feel that way, right? And I also knew that and also, and Mary Kay always taught us that we were essentially in control of the outlook of our life. We were in control of our life for the majority of things. We can't control our family. We can't control how we were born and who we were born to, and really our upbringing. We couldn't control any of that. But once we get to the point where we leave the house, right? And really, as we, even in the house, there are a lot of things we can control. Certainly we can control a lot of things, even the things that we do, whatever. But like, especially as we start making bigger decisions and everything, we are controlling the outcomes, right? We are controlling the way we want our life to look. based on the decisions that we make. And my dad used to always tell me too, he used to always say, and my mom too, my mom definitely used to say this to me all the time. One decision, you might be at a time in your life when you're young or whatever, and you have like all these doors that are open to you. You literally have all these doors open and all these options, okay, and all these different directions that you could go, because maybe you're, if you're young, or you're just starting out in life, or you are whatever, starting over, whatever, you have all these doors, but you make one decision and it will boom, 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 close a bunch of doors. So for example, my mom used to always say, definitely, once you get married, all these other doors close. You're not single anymore, and you are now like married, right? So all these other options that you had, not just men, but I'm just saying in general with life, or, different things that you think you might wanted to do, whatever. Now you're a wife, right? And so now a lot of these options, a lot of these things or whatever, opportunities or whatever are closed, because you made this one decision right here. And life is like that. You make a decision to take a certain job, and if it had whatever the hours are, you are closing other opportunities to maybe do certain things during that time period that you have to work during the day or whatever, or especially, my mom used to say, especially as soon as you have a kid, it's like you have the whole world open to you, all these things that you could be doing and that you feel maybe free to do. But the minute you get pregnant or you have a child, all these doors close, right? Because now you got to care for another life. And now you have other important things to do, right? And so you don't always have the options that, you want this or that, right? So basically, it's very vital, it's important that you learn how to use discernment and make good decisions, especially about certain things. Now, if you're just deciding between, do I want to eat an apple or an orange? Okay, that's not such a big deal, right? But if you're deciding between this job or that job, or this man or this man, or this woman or this woman, or between, if I want to live here or there, if I want to, different things, all kinds of big decisions, right? You might decide, do I want to put my mother in a nursing home, or do I want to care for her at the house? And if you decide to put her in a nursing home and then something goes wrong, you're going to feel responsible for that, because now maybe they didn't care for her the way that you want, right? Things like that, big life decisions that require discernment and confidence, right? Discernment, thinking ability, and confidence to make the decision and feel okay with dealing with whatever the consequences are to that decision, whatever the ripple effects are to that decision. So if you decide that you're gonna, start fostering children and caring for children in your home, all right, and you still have children in your home, there are ripple effects to that, right? And you have to think about you and your energy level, and you have to think about how that's going to affect your family, right? You have to use or discernment to see what your resources are, what you can do, how will that affect you, right? Or same thing with this job or that job, or whatever it is that you are trying to decide between, right? And this process of discernment and of good decision making, or just making decisions, okay? This process that I'm talking about is literally something that you will have to do over and over and over and over again. In fact, that's what makes up your life. That's what makes up your life. And every time you make a decision, right, good or bad or whatever, you hopefully you learn from it. Sometimes you're forced to learn from it. You might make a bad decision to your parents might have said, you're not allowed to be out after 11, but you decide to do your thing and be out after 11, go hang with your boys, and they're doing the wrong thing, and you're hanging with them, and you're just hanging with the wrong people at the wrong time, right? And you're caught up, and next thing you know, you're behind bars because of something dumb. Maybe you weren't even doing it, or maybe you didn't even know what they were doing. Doesn't matter. Bad association, right? That's what the Bible says. Bad association spoils useful habits, which means who you hang around, or that decision to possibly like disobey your parents or whatever, right? That one decision, bam, it gave you a record for the rest of your life, or it gave you or put you behind bars, right? But I bet you're learning something. I bet you learned something while you're there. I bet you, talking to God or whatever, right? So I'm sharing this because people have told me and have said to me, you just seem so confident in your decisions and everything. And I always wonder why people, because I don't always feel confident. I definitely don't. And sometimes I just don't know, right? But I go according to the way that I feel, because, if I walk out both, maybe I feel like this or I feel like this, right? It's kind of like, I don't know. And so sometimes I just kind of go with what I feel to be the right thing, okay? Because of maybe there is no clear answer, and maybe it's something that is kind of like, what is going to be right for you in your body, your mental health, psychological health, whatever, right? And other people won't understand that or whatever, but because of my experiences that I have gone through, and I know what my limitations are, okay, because of different things, right? That what I have learned, though, is that when I make a decision or something, you make it and you stand firm on it, mainly because of the influence of other people around you, especially when you're making a hard decision, right? Like, take, for example, and I'm just using me as an example, when I've had to, walk away from romantic partners. And I knew that, it's going to ruffle some feathers, and there's going to be consequences to the actions, right? And what I have learned many times over and over and over again, for me personally, is when I come to a place of the pain of staying wherever, in a job, in a house, with a person, in an area, whatever, when the pain of staying is greater than the pain of leaving. Because sometimes decisions that you might be given or you are looking at, there's going to be pain either way. Pain if you do this, pain if you do that. And you walk it out, and then the difference is that, or what you might need to decide is, if I do this, what pain am I going to feel if I do this? And is there any way to mitigate that or to minimize it some? Or if I do this, what pain am I going to feeling if I do this, stay here, go there, whatever, okay? And what pain am I going to feel here? And which pain is worse? Which pain is worse? Or which one feels like it's going to maybe feel wrong inside of me? Like, maybe not wrong to other people, but wrong to me. What will feel wrong to me? Okay? And there are lots of times like that in life where a decision that I might have to make might feel right to me, but wrong to the other person. Because they have a different view on that choice. They have a different view on how they see life, how they see their life, how they see you in their life, right? It's like when you want to leave a job and your boss loves you and thinks you're perfect for that position, but you've been doing it maybe for 10 years and you've not. In fact, I do have a story about that. I remember I worked at Bright House Networks many years ago, which was like the cable company in Florida, and it was like Time Warner or whatever. Anyway, I did it briefly. And only reason why I did that job is because I actually have a degree in computer networking, and I actually like hands-on things. I actually like building things. I actually like it. I actually enjoy it. And I went out for that company and that job in particular because I wanted to actually be in the field, setting up people's boxes and stuff. Okay, for cable back in the day or whatever. Well, they still did that, but actually, when I was doing that, fiber optics had just come out. And I actually found it very, very interesting. And I wanted to do it. And because I'm an active kind of person, I actually am that kind of way. So when I went for that position I applied for, I interviewed and everything. And they called me and they said, oh, you got the job or whatever. I'm thinking I'm going to be out in the field doing these installations or whatever. No. They put me in the office, okay, in the back of the building with the other women. There was a few other ladies or whatever in these cubicles, and I was doing customer service and doing, quality control basically on all the installations, making sure that everything was signed properly and everything had, gotten put into the computer. And basically it was not what I went for. Okay. And, I was like, okay, I guess I'll, okay, well, so how long do I have to be in this position before I get to go out in the field? And I remember my boss saying to me, not that, you just need to get some time under your belt, and when a position is available, then we'll move you up or whatever. Well, it was like, I kept seeing positions available on the home, on the screen or whatever, where you look for whatever is available open in the company. And every time I wanted to go, it was like, for some reason, no, it was a no, it was a no, it was a no. And after like 6 months or so, or maybe 8 months, I don't even know how long, I don't remember how long I stayed, but mind you, I was back in a cubicle and there was no windows in the back of the building. It was like this, building. In the front, we took payments and stuff, and customers came in the front, but all in the back was all like, where the men came in and picked up boxes and stuff like that, and all the administration part. And anyway, I remember after 6 months or so, and I felt like I was gonna shake out of my skin. Like, it was just like it was crazy for me. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be out. And so I remember talking to another woman there. She was a black woman. She was older than me, and there wasn't a whole lot of black people in the company, or at least not there. Anyway, and I was talking to her, and I said, I don't know why my boss, so-and-so, I said, every time I try to go for a position, it's like, I feel like she's not like actually wanting me to go, or she doesn't want me to go, or it's like she's not like allowing me to apply for it or whatever. She says no. And anyway, that woman, she said to me, Melinda, you're not going to go out in the field with those men. You're not going to do that. Or she said, you're not going to go out in the field. You're not going to be in the trucks. You're never going to go do that. Let's just call this lady, Charlene. She was like, Miss Charlene is keeping you back there with her. You are one of her minions. And I was like, what? She goes, look at the work you do. First of all, you putting everybody to shame back there, because you're finishing your work at 12 o'clock and everybody's mad at you, but she loves you because you're doing a good job. She's not going to let you go nowhere. Second of all, you're a liability, honey. They're not going to put you out working with these men when they know those men are going to hit on you. You're beautiful. And you're going to have to, you're a liability, because the likelihood of you having a sexual harassment claim is very high. She's like, you're never going to be there. She goes, and I looked at her, I said, what? I was young. I was so young. And I was like, really? I was like, but that's what I wanted when I took this job. And that's what I told her I was actually applying for. Like, I don't, and she goes, no. She goes, that's a pie in the sky. She wants you back there as, one of her, whatever, helpers or whatever. She had like, cause Charlene was the boss or whatever, but there was about maybe six or seven of us that did this administration and stuff, all this paper stuff or whatever. When she told me that, though, when she let on to me what the reality of the situation was for me, like the real reality, now I was like, oh my God. And I remember feeling like instantly suffocated, like I couldn't breathe. And I thought, there ain't no way I'm not retiring here. Because these women that I was with, I was the youngest one there. And there was one girl who was like maybe 5 years older than me or something. And the rest of these were all older women who were already having grandbabies or whatever. And I had just had my first child. I just had Jaden. And it was somewhere right around there, I think. Yeah. I think I had just had Jaden. I don't remember exactly, but I don't know how old he was exactly. But anyway, everybody else there was older, and the way they acted, I remember hearing their conversations, and everything was just, it was so predictable, so boring. So for me, it was very meaningless. Like I just knew I didn't belong there. I knew I didn't belong there. I didn't want to be there. And I was finished with my work by 12 o'clock and twiddling my fingers like what to do. And in fact, they told me, the ladies kept getting mad at me saying, you need to slow down your work. You're making us look bad. And she's going to give us more work because of you, and you need to stretch this out. And and that was like right around the time that I talked to that woman. Anyway, I was like, okay, I didn't even like this position and everything. I mean, I needed the money. We needed the money. Okay. But I knew for sure this was, not good. I wasn't going to be able to do it, and the thing about it was that I wanted to move into the other position, but I could see that there was no growth. There was not going to be no growth. There was no other higher position than what I was doing outside of the boss in that department. There wasn't anything else. There was no room for growth. And they weren't going to let me go in the trucks. Okay. And it was like, well, I'm not going to own the company. I'm not going to own Time Warner. Right. And so I just remember thinking like, this is so dead end. Like and I just remember thinking like, this is how people get stuck. This is a comfort zone. This is how people get stuck. Cause I figured out the job very well. I knew it very easily. And, every 6 months or whatever, you just get your 50-cent raise or something. Right. And I'm like, oh my God, this is how people get stuck. And I just remember being so scared. I remember being so scared. Like, I don't want to get stuck here. I don't want to get stuck here. And I remember telling my husband, I gotta go. They're not gonna let me do whatever I wanted to really do anyway. And that woman only sees me as a female who should be in the back doing the female work. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that constraint. I didn't like it. The people were all nice enough. Everybody was nice enough. It wasn't about that, but it was definitely about how the boss and others in the company viewed me and what they wanted from me, though it was not what I wanted. And it also wasn't what I came in there expressing that I wanted either. So it was like, it didn't matter. It was like, this was all that I was going to be offered. Right. And I was like, I'm out. I'm ready to go. I'm not going to stay in a place where there's no growth. I can't do it. Not in a job, not in a job. And a lot of times that happens in life where the people around you, they see you as a particular thing or a particular way, or they only want you to stay in this particular lane, right? And if you don't have any confidence to step outside your comfort zone, or you haven't had practice in your life, or you weren't raised that way to have discernment and thinking ability and to really, work out your decision making and whatnot, right? You will by default stay in a comfort zone and stay where you're expected because you are not used to exercising your decision-making skills and then executing on them and standing 10 toes down, standing firm on your decision and not letting other people talk you out of it, right? And it's kind of like that. Like you will end up just doing that. Just doing whatever in your comfort zone or whatever it is that those people around you want you to do. Right. And I've had some of those type of people, right, will say to me, how do you do it? Like, weren't you scared to make this decision or to do that or to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I was, but I was more scared of staying. I was more scared of what my life was going to look like if I stayed, or if I was going to have a life, depending on the situation. If I was going to, if my health, sometimes if you're staying in a place or in a position with somebody or, whatever, and your health is declining, and it's because you are the one that's overgiving or whatever in a relationship, which I'm no longer doing. I'm definitely no longer an overgiver at all. I don't care if I'm empathic or not. I don't care. I can feel sorry for somebody all day long and feel your feelings, but I'm not going to be an overgiver. I'm done with that. My body, physically body, can't take it anymore. And I've learned that lesson. Done, and done. Okay. Also, so eventually as you make these decisions over and over and over again, and you have learned from these decisions and you have learned from the mistakes. Okay. When you learn from your mistakes as well, basically when you make one decision and you fall on your face, for example, let's say, you're young and you decide to, get married, young. Okay. And everybody knows, 90% of those marriages, the people who are married, young in life, especially as a teenager or something, if you're 18, 19 or whatever, most of the time, they don't last. Everybody knows that. The chances of your relationship lasting is so slim. My parents did. but they had faced so many obstacles just to even be together, okay? And they knew each other from the time that they were 12, okay? My mother and my father, they knew each other from so young. They were not strangers to each other by any means. They grew up together. They were best friends. So it wasn't a hard decision for them. You know, it was a harder decision for them to see each other without each other. But they're one of the few people who could stand the test of time in that way, and, you know, getting married young. But most people, when you hear about them getting married at 18 or whatever, or doing anything at 18 or 19 or 20, what do you always hear them say? I was young and yep, I moved on past that. Or that relationship didn't last. That job didn't last. That whatever didn't last, right? Because you made these decisions or mistakes, or both, a mistaken decision, right? But you learn from it, right? Okay, because, and you did it, you made that decision out of youth, or you made the decision out of inexperience. Because the more experiences you have from a young age, which thankfully, I mean, in one sense, thankfully, I have a lot of experiences. I have a lot of life experiences, things that most people hadn't gone through at my age, my whole life, that for different things, but at every stage, at every age, you know, it was like a lot of people my age, they weren't going through that, or they weren't dealing with that. And so I have a lot of experiences under my belt but I'm younger than a lot of people, right? And so I make decisions different than maybe other people my age or whatever, right? Okay. And also I have had the opportunity to build confidence in my decision-making skills. And it's like my son, you know, went out and decided to, you know, leave early because he wanted to do his own thing, which he knows what that was, okay? And it was something that I didn't agree being done in my house, right? So he wanted to move out, which he did. And his empathic self ran into a narcissist. And he married that person or whatever. And he has paid for that decision severely. Because it was made, A, without any insight from his mother or his family or anybody. And B, it was made from inexperience. Okay? And it was made blindly, having faith and trust in somebody. And guess what he learned? A valuable lesson in love. He learned that you can't believe what everybody says to you. A lot of people will sell you snake oil. Okay? They will sell you that pie in the sky. And a lot of people will say things just to get you to fit into whatever mold that they want you to, or just to break you down so that you don't leave your comfort zone, right? And a lot of people will also say things to you to fit whatever narrative that they have in their brain about you, or about the job, or about whatever, right? As you know, especially if you're dealing with a narcissist, especially if you're dealing with somebody controlling, that person will literally say things. And the reason why I can even stand on what I'm saying, even specifically, even in his situation, that female that he decided to, whatever, right? Literally never even officially met her. And that young female had so many choice words to say to me and my mother, and she had never met either one of us. Every time she got into an argument or didn't like something that my son was doing or whatever, okay, because mind you, they were moved out and far away, but every single time, me and my mother, we had to block her. Like, we had never even met this person, and it was so much toxic, hot garbage, nasty, condescending, I mean, disgusting, vile, demonistic type of things coming out of her mouth. It was clear to me that there was literally a mental disorder there. I mean, it was clear to me, but also I'm older with experience, and I probably would have seen that in her, you know, had I had time or opportunity to actually meet her and get to know her, right? But I didn't get that, right? And so the decision was made, and there it was. And so every single time I would be getting these messages and negative things, and I had nothing to do with any. I didn't, it's like, I'm not down there, I'm not even in their relationship, I don't know what's going on or whatever. They're just having some argument between the two of them, and it would be like horrific things coming. I mean, it was just like, what some of the things I have never even said to my worst enemy, much less to somebody I've never met, much less to somebody who's not even involved in your conversation, your disagreement, your argument, or nothing. It was beyond disrespectful. Beyond. It was like, this person has no boundaries. And I had to create boundaries to somebody I never even met, and to somebody that I literally did not know or anything, and just was like, I had to create boundaries. And I'm like, and I didn't even get the opportunity to choose you to be in my life. Okay. And that's what I mean. All right. And the projection that was coming out of this young female's life or mouth, about me and all these other family members who she's never met, just projections based on whatever argument that she was having with my son. And I was like, this is so narcissistic. This is so foul and demonic. It was horrible, right? But my son, being youthful and everything, and when the next day this female would have a different, would be acting differently, and to me, I'm looking at that, this is so mentally unstable. When a person goes from here to here to here to here, you can't say the things that you say and actually think you're going to come back from them, because some of these things that were said, it was like, all I could do was pray, because I knew that his respect was getting chipped at, and his confidence was getting chipped away. And I was saying everything I could possibly say, and I was trying my hardest to, like, do not let these women's words get to you, because this is disgusting. I mean, you guys hadn't even been married. I mean, they weren't even together long enough for her to ever say these types of things to you, like, to anybody. It don't matter what you were doing. But I know my son, and I know. And anyway, the point is that he learned. He had to get some thick skin, and he made that decision. I mean, when I did find out about it the day before or whatever, and I said, you're making a bad decision, like, this is not good, and I expressed that, but I knew he wasn't going to listen to me. I knew he wasn't. And I knew I was going to have to let him walk that out, because he has always been that way as a child. He was always that way. He had to go to the school of hard knocks. And so some things are just like that. There are some things that are just like that, right? But these people who do this or whatever, if he would have stayed and became, or, if he had decided to allow himself to be under her control and to stay within the parameters or whatever, do whatever it was or whatever, his life would be a living hell. Okay, he's doing great now. My son is doing amazing. He is, I'm very proud of him. He's, finishing up his degree, and he's already working in his field. And, the minute he got rid of that demonistic monster out of his life, and he let her go, the minute his life started improving. And that's how it works sometimes. When you make one decision, you close all these other doors, and you got to deal with this issue. And then sometimes you got to make a decision to close that door so that you can now open up all these other doors over here, right? But sometimes you just have to go through that to learn. And now, okay, I guarantee you, as he gets older and everything, he has this experience under his belt. I guarantee you the next one won't be the same, because he's going to be looking for certain things, right? Because he's got that experience now. Okay. And it's like, for me, I'm not a starter wife. I was a wife, and I was a wife and with one man for 17 years. Okay. I'm not a starter wife. So I knew that getting married to somebody who had never been married before, would be, there would be some trial and error, right? Because you learn a lot, definitely, in your first marriage. And unfortunately, my late husband passed away, right? So, but I learned so much, and I made a lot of my mistakes with him, right? So now, because I'm not a starter wife, the type of wife that I am and how I show up in relationships, I can stand 10 toes down on. And in fact, I know whoever I'm with, right, is going to grow with me because I I know how to foster a relationship. I know how to handle being a wife and handle working and whatnot. Like, and I understand certain things, roles and things. I get it, right? But it's because I'm not a starter wife. This isn't brand new to me. I'm not, so, but I also know, and I had to learn later in life, what a narcissist, well, I would say more of how hidden, how deeply people can hide traumatic events and their real self. I've learned about sometimes when somebody's wearing a mask, you think they took the mask off, and underneath the mask, they got about 5, 6, 7 more masks underneath there. Okay. And you might not see that real face or whatever until after that person thinks that they got you under their control. That's what they call Jekyll and Hyde, right? When a person switches up on you. So I never really experienced that, but I have now. And you can't always predict those things. But what I do know is that no matter what, I will never stay in a situation like that. I won't stay in it. And God does not want me to. I know he doesn't. He's already made that very clear that this is not right. So I feel like that was something that I definitely learned last year. Okay. And so while you might you could do the best that you can to make the best decisions. This was the other thing that my mother always said this to me too. She always, and even now, I remind myself of this all the time. All the time I say this to myself. And you've heard this before probably, or I hope so, that you can only make decisions based on the information and the knowledge you have at that moment or up to that point. So, in other words, if you decide to get married to somebody and, they have shown you one side of themselves or all these, whatever you think, whatever they've shown you or whatever you think or whatever, the knowledge you have. And then after you get married, you find out one of those, kids or whatever isn't yours, or you find out they have secret children over here, or that they're married to somebody, they actually have more than one wife or husband or something crazy like that, or they actually have an illness that you didn't know anything about, or maybe they're schizophrenic and you didn't know that they were, or maybe that, they don't make as much, or maybe they had other ulterior motives. Maybe they want you to sign a life insurance policy just so they can secretly poison you and gain from that money, right? I mean, you hear of these things all the time, and believe me, they happen, right? People have all kinds of ulterior motives and things the knowledge that for whatever reason you did not have prior to, so you could not make a good decision or a sound decision because you were missing knowledge, right? And you can't blame yourself for that, because sometimes people hide those things for obvious reasons because they want you to stay in a particular lane, right? Because they know that if they were to tell you, I really want to marry you so that you can, sign this life insurance policy that we're going to get on each other right away, and so that I can poison you and slowly kill you, or so that, I can, siphon your energy and, have somebody under my control, or do whatever as I say, or, so that I can use your paycheck to do whatever it is that I want, or so that your paycheck can pay the bills and my paycheck can go towards my addictions over here that I don't want to tell you. Because obviously, if somebody actually said all their truth, right, you would obviously make a different decision. So therefore, you cannot hold yourself accountable sometimes, or at least you cannot fault yourself for making such a bad decision when you didn't have all the knowledge. Now, if you had all the knowledge, or the same knowledge or whatever, if you had, and you decided to still make that decision or whatever, well, that was called a chance you took. That was a chance that you took, right? And you took the chance, and it didn't work out for you, right? You rolled the dice, and it was like, okay. And that happens in life. It does. And the only thing you can do at that point, if it doesn't work out, you you literally just make a different choice. You decide differently. You say, okay, I'm going to make a different decision now that I have this knowledge, or now that I can see that this and this and this has happened or whatever. And now I'm going to have to take a chance on myself and, move out, leave, start a fresh life somewhere else or whatever, start a new job over here. Or, what happens when you leave one job because you're getting a better job, you're thinking you're getting better pay or whatever, you do all of that, maybe you have to move and everything, and then this other job that you get, yeah, you are getting better pay, or yeah, maybe it is, something better or whatever, but you have the worst boss from hell, okay? Or you have something else, like, or who knows, or you go there and something bad happens at the job, right? Like something bad or whatever. It's like things that you didn't know. You didn't have knowledge of it. So it's like, this kind of stuff happens all the time. I mean, this kind of stuff happens to people all the time where they wish that they could have made a better decision or a different choice or a different one, right? But the only thing you can do is, when you feel that has happened to you, is to decide firmly from that point on, or that day on, no, this is my new decision, or this is how I feel now, and this is what I'm going to do, and now I'm going to start taking steps to do that, and not let anybody else change our mind. Why? Because I've had experience over here, already had experience making this decision, and that was wrong, and I'm not going to repeat it. I'm not going to repeat that decision. And honestly, that's the only thing you can ask for, really, is that when you make a mistake, is you own up to the mistake, whatever that was, or whatever decision, you accept responsibility for it, and then you take ownership for changing it or making it better. It happens. It's like if you were young and you married somebody young, and even if she wasn't a narcissist and she wasn't whatever, but you guys just turned out to not be compatible. I mean, that happens. That's really more or less what actually happens to a lot of people. And then at some point, it's like you take responsibility for the decision that you made. And, you might have to say to Johnny, little Johnny, big Johnny, whatever, I've known you since I was 17 or whatever. And we have done 10 years together and grown up or whatever. And I have been unhappy all this time or whatever. Or, I'm changed now. I'm a different person. I am no longer that person, and it's more than that, like usually, it's come to a point where, like I said, usually your health is at risk, or, there's just, too much toxicity, too much negativity, toxicity. There's no growth. You cannot grow. You cannot expand. You cannot move on. Forget about trying to have any relationship with God, because you're literally just trying to maybe survive the day or not deal with toxic type of stuff, right? So whatever it is, whatever the case, whatever it is, when the pain of staying in that decision that you made, when the pain of staying is greater than the pain of leaving, that's when you leave. That's when you finally leave. That's when you'll be like, okay, I'm done. I'm making a different decision, and I'm no longer wasting any more time over here. And the more and more that you do those type of decisions, or get an opportunity to make choices and make decisions or whatever, you gain confidence, you gain wisdom, you gain knowledge, you gain confidence, and it starts to become easier for you to make decisions, right? And so I know people who didn't get that as an opportunity as a child to do that, and they had to, basically start utilizing these types of tools as an adult, as an adult in their 30s and 40s, okay? And it's like, it doesn't matter when you've acquired the knowledge, okay? Just be thankful that you have now, and you have a new skill in your toolbox of life to handle life, and you just start to utilize it when you know better. Like my parents used to say, when you know better, you do better. My dad used to always say that. When you know better, you do better. So when you get the proper knowledge, or you get all the knowledge that you feel like you need to have or whatever, then you make a different decision, right? And so, that's really, really all you can do when you make a mistake and everything is, or when you make a decision, that was not the best decision or something like that or whatever, it's okay. It's okay. It happens. Sometimes you give something your best shot. I know I many jobs that I've had, it's like, okay, I gave it my best shot. And it's not for me. I decided now, after doing this for XYZ or whatever, that this is not for me. I'm going to make a different decision now. Right? And it's really just a matter of, exercising your right and exercising your decision-making ability and making that decision and not letting anybody else try to change your mind when you know something is right for you. Right? I mean, whenever somebody is giving you advice, especially when you are dealing with a particular decision, you have to take into account who is giving you the advice, right? And if you ask your boss, should I quit this job that you're at right now? And you're asking your boss is probably going to say no. Why would your boss say, yeah, quit? Likely your boss is going to say no. So you know why? Because that's going to hurt his or her productivity. They're going to now have to try to replace you, right? So of course they're not going to be, in support of that, right? But if your job is making, let's say you make, $300,000 a year or something, whatever, you make a big amount of money, and you have a huge house payment and cars and a wife and family, and everybody is used to living a certain lifestyle and Gucci this and whatever, Versace's this, whatever, right? Whatever kind of lifestyle you live, and everybody is used to, vacations and whatever, right? And now you want to, you decide that, okay, this job is no longer for me, and I'm going to have to pivot and change and go into something else. And you feel like you can't because everybody else doesn't want to pivot because they're reaping the benefits to your work, right? The money that you're making for the household, right? And of course, if you ask them what you should do, your wife and your kids, likely, if they are attached to the way that they are living, they're going to be like, no, don't quit. I won't be able to go, to Paris on my, school break or whatever. And, if you do that, you won't be able to buy me my BMW or whatever, right? Like whatever material things that they have tied up to your money, with it, which is tied up to your job, right? But now if you ask somebody else, maybe a life coach or somebody else who's not tied up in that way, should I quit this job because I'm no longer feeling fulfilled here, or it's taking a toll on my health, or XYZ, whatever, I'm more passionate over here, I want to like to do this type of job. And the life coach is like, yeah, you absolutely should. It's going to require a sacrifice. Okay, if you make that decision, it's going to close a few other doors. You might not be able to get that Ferrari, that Mercedes, or that big house, or you might have to move, or you might have to downsize, or you might have to, start thinking more frugal, use coupons or something, like whatever, right? But the point is that it will create an adjustment, but you will be happier over here doing this, whatever you're more passionate about, right? Maybe it's whatever your life calling is or something. And so it's like the pain of staying now, because you might have a burning desire inside of you to go and do that thing that you're good at, or a thing that you're passionate about, or whatever, right? And it's like the pain of staying is killing you because you're supposed to be over there, right? And it's like, you know that you can't get the support of all these people over here because their lifestyle might have to change, or they might have to adjust, or they're just not going to like it. It's going to make us look like we're poor, or, whatever has gotten their ego tied up into that money or job or whatever, right? It's like, if you are used to being called Dr. So-and-so because you are a doctor, and then you step down from being a doctor, okay, technically you can still be called Dr. So-and-so, but if you decide to become something else that's not a doctor, but something else completely different, a rock star, like a music band or something like that, it's like you now want to be known as a musician, right? Not necessarily a doctor. I mean, maybe not, right? But it's like sometimes people have egos and identities that are tied up into a decision that you might have made in your teens or when you were very young in life. And it's like, I've grown since then. That is not the decision I would make today. With the person that I am today, with the knowledge that I have today, I would not have chose that job or that